Hello and welcome everyone to OnPoint Technologies and PCM Webinars Wednesday. We are thrilled to have you with us for Microsoft webinar today, which is Windows 10 Enterprise Features and Benefits. And to present on this topic, we have got our very own Danny Long, who is PCM Microsoft Technical Engineer, SME. Before going into our main presentation, we have got some housekeeping items. Please remember to enter your questions in the question box on your right-hand side, and I will relay those over to our speaker at the end of the presentation today. There will be a survey which will be emailed to you at the end of the session today, which will be a referral entry for you guys and a chance to win a $50 Amex gift card. This is also a recorded session, and the recorded will be up for viewing in 1 week's time. And last but not least, if you want to view the future webinar schedule, you can log into www.onpoint.com/webinars to view all the future webinars. And with that, I'm happy to hand it over to Danny. Danny, you're on now.
Thank you. Welcome, everybody. I really appreciate everybody taking time out of their schedule today to spend some time with me. And happy Wednesday. My name is Daniel Long. I'm the Microsoft Pre-Sales Technical Engineer with PCM/OnPoint. My role within PCM and /OnPoint is I provide guidance, technical guidance for our clients and the roadmap from Microsoft and an understanding of the usage rights for that technology and what the requirements are for implementation. So with that, I'm going to talk about what our agenda is today. Again, I gave you a brief introduction of who I am, what my role is within PCM. I would like to discuss now what I'm going to cover today when it comes to Windows 10. I'm going to highlight a lot of different areas, and I'm going to focus and cover quite a bit of content today. So I'm going to move at a certain pace. Hopefully it'll provide a good overview of what Windows 10 experience is and how from an IT perspective you can get it out to those users, and kind of what the adoption rate is, what the upgrade options are, security features, enhanced security features, and the integration with the cloud services from Microsoft, the different various editions that are available and which edition supports these different features from a security perspective. And then at the end of this session, we'll cover any questions that any of the attendees may have. And then I'm going to also review some resources that support some of the content that I'm sharing with you today. And the resources will be covering a lot of the documentation that supports and enhances the security features and some of the integration with the public cloud, like Azure, for example. So first thing I want to cover today is the adoption rate and how Windows 10 is actually being adopted out there within the enterprise. Today, Microsoft has provided numbers that over 400 million companies or users have adopted Windows 10 and running actively on their devices. And there are about 96% of enterprises are at least running pilots or testing Windows 10 when it comes to compatibility running on various hardware. And then also the growth projection that Microsoft has for how well Windows 10 will be adopted and be accepted out there by the users is about 145% over the next year. And all this information is provided by Gartner and also Forrester and these top, survey and firms that are out there. So there's a lot of potential with Windows 10 and a lot of what's going on with it from a user perspective. There's not a lot of transition from going from Windows 7 over to, Windows 10, for example, so the user doesn't need a lot of training and guidance on it. When you go from Windows 8, if you're at that point, then you're going to be more comfortable going over to Windows 10 from an interface or user interface perspective. So you're getting a very high adoption rate. And keep in mind, Microsoft did initially offer that free upgrade, which ended on July 29th, that hopefully some of you took advantage of. and are utilizing at least having the experience of Windows 10 for a segment of your users or within IT, just to test out and experience some of the enhancements with Windows 10. And there's a lot of companies that have adopted it from all segments, from the enterprise over to government, financial institutions, education. So there's a lot of companies, so you can see that they've been tested, they're utilizing it, and they trust the platform to run within their organization from all different levels, from application compatibility to security, and have a lot of users that have flexibility from accessing from any device, and have that centralized information and logging capability for those users. So there's a lot of adoption out there for Windows 10. And Windows 10 is made very easy to roll out and upgrade to the new platform. Instead of having to go to that traditional way of upgrading where you kind of have to move the data off that primary device, and then you have to back it up, and then you can complete the upgrade. You have to test the apps and automate those apps to run. Upgrading through Windows 10 is just like going through what we call current branch. If you're not familiar with current branch, it's a way of what supports Microsoft's philosophy is Windows as a service. And what that is basically all the updates and all the new feature sets. It's almost like a subscription base when it comes to features. Features are rolled out and provided on a quarterly, sometimes even monthly basis for Windows 10. And then you can actually control and manage those updates. There's two options. There's current branch or current branch for business. Within Windows 10 in the interface, you can actually defer updates, and you can select the type of model you want. So you can go to current branch for business, and then you can timeline how those updates are, how much of a delay those updates. A lot of companies do not want to roll out the current features because they don't know how to affect their users and or the applications they're using. So there are ways to utilize policies within your network, group policies, and or tools like Windows services, update services. That's Windows Server Update Services to manage and control those updates and defer those updates for up to 6 months. So you have that flexibility to do so. So that's kind of what current branch is. So deployment of Windows 10 is very easy today, and I'm going to actually cover that as one of my topics later in the presentation. Again, like I discussed, there's data, wipe and reload with the previous options. You have to reinstall the application. It's a complete OS replace, device drivers, test and confirm those device drivers, and user interface could sometimes be restraining and not comfortable for the users. So the new option for Windows 10 is everything stays in place. You can actually apps, automated upgrade process, device compatible, test the apps, and there's tools, analytical tools that you can use that I'm going to be covering. And the UI, like I mentioned, is very familiar to the users. So it's a very easy transition. And there's, like I said, I'm going to cover the different models and how you can utilize and get to Windows 10. And customers have told us and spoke to Microsoft primarily about what their employees need, how they want to utilize technology, and how they basically want to manage risk, be more productive on any device they use, get away from processes when it comes to business agility, for example. So there's a lot of, excuse me, there's a lot of requirements that the users have that they want to see the growth and the options to run on most of their modern devices and have access to all this data and all their resources and information. And based on some of the reporting that Microsoft has gotten, Windows 10 deployment pays for itself within a certain period of time. Here it says 13 months. So there's certain savings in different areas when it comes to desktop management, reduction in security issues and time to resolve, because there's a lot of security features that have been enhanced or options that you have within Windows 10 that I'll be covering. It also improves productivity for the users. They have a lot of flexibility to have the same unified platform to work off of or access information from with Windows 10. It runs on various devices. So it has a lot of highlighted features and flexibility for those users to give them that mobility, and which a lot of end users would like or need. So I'm going to go over the 3 different various options for deployment of a Windows 10 and what you can do and how you can accomplish getting Windows 10 on your current devices. The 3 options are going what we call an InPlace Upgrade, provisioning, and wipe and load. The most used option through your various tools like SUS, Windows Server Update Services, or SCCM, System Center Configuration Manager, is to basically do an InPlace upgrade. So it basically, like I mentioned earlier, it preserves all the data, settings, apps, and drivers. It's basically one standard image that you install, and it restores everything on that device. So it's a very easy transition for those devices and those users to move into Windows 10. For new devices, and you want to create in place of doing what we call imaging for devices, you can do what we call provisioning, where you basically set up certain settings and runtime configurations and customize the image on that device to roll it out to the users. You basically remove extra items from the OEM and basically add your tools and organizational apps to the provisioned device, and also you can configure the settings when it comes to security and, like I said, update management, for example, through the branch option. And then you have custom image. That's basically when you're going through and you're basically doing a wipe and reload. You're creating one standard image to use across your organization, which is done through what we call volume licensing. There's a lot of questions that I receive by speaking to clients, and this is how do I accomplish this? What the requirements are? How do I stay in compliance to do this? You can know for sure that you cannot image an OEM version. You do have rights because you have a device that's been OEM'd for a specific version like Windows 10 Pro, that you have certain re-imaging rights, but you have to go through a volume licensing program, an agreement to obtain the media and the proper keys to use to accomplish that. So keep that in mind when you create an image that you want to use across your organization and you're already properly licensed via an OEM, meaning the devices already came with the OS pre-installed. You can go through volume licensing depending on what type of volume licensing program and or agreement that you utilize, and obtain the media and also the product key to complete that imaging process in creating that image. Okay, one of the things I'm going to cover is moving into an InPlace upgrade. Again, an InPlace upgrade is the preferred option for enterprises for existing devices. You can upgrade from either Windows 7, Windows 8, or Windows 8.1. Fast, reliable upgrade process that you can utilize. There's really no issues that you may encounter as long as you've tested those apps. Windows 10 will actually validate the drivers and obtain the current drivers that are needed, similar to what we call Windows Update used by consumers, but it's under enterprise control as far as getting those updates, like I mentioned, through the branch services, and have kind of overview of how you control those updates and the tools you can use to do so, which is System Center Configuration Manager, Microsoft Deployment Toolkit, SUS, Update for Business, and I actually have some resources that I'll be sharing with you later in the slide under the resource portion of this presentation that you can review, and we can kind of discuss And I'll highlight which those resources highlight these different areas. And you basically can deploy a standard image of Windows 10. So the data, apps, OS, device, and user interface for the user are very similar, and that all those other options for sort of the data, apps, and the device pretty much stay in place, and as long as it supports and is capable of running Windows 10. Again, when you're running those other devices, you have to keep in mind, or you're moving to, there are some organizations out there that have some legacy apps. They have specific requirements for those apps within the organization that users need or to access those apps or that information. So they're still out there running XP. They have complete awareness that it's no longer a secured OS and is no longer supported by Microsoft, but there's no way around it until either the third-party application provider or vendor supports or provides the update, or they actually upgrade to the current app that's needed. So when you do go into Windows 7, it's a data store, wipe and reload. So you basically have to either back up that data, and then once you install or move that current OS, then you reinstall those apps and that data back onto that device. So it's basically an OS replace. Again, most of you are probably with IT or have some area of how to upgrade, even if you're a consumer. I've done it quite a bit at home. And it's, like I said, it's a very easy process. I've upgraded a lot of my personal devices from, Windows 8, which a lot of my people, my family at home was very happy with. We were Windows 8.1 over to Windows 10 because of the user interface. And then, so it's a very easy upgrade process to complete. And then, so like I mentioned, the user interface is very familiar. It even runs the guidelines with XP. You have the start menu, you run through the different options to get your apps, you get your settings. So it's very familiar to the end user. So there's not a lot of help desk support that's required for that. And again, with Windows 10, let me reiterate, that basically everything stays in place. You always want to have a pilot to test, to use Windows 10 to see if it's going to work within your organization and support the apps that you're using today. Again, it's an automated upgrade process that you'll use, and it's very compatible with these different options to use as far as moving and utilizing different tools. It's very compatible with a lot of apps and hardware that's out there. And again, the interface is very familiar to your users. The only option you really need to do what we call a wipe and reload for a device, and you don't have the InPlace Upgrade option, is when you're changing from a 32-bit to a 64-bit version of Windows 10. Systems are running Windows to go. We have it on a USB drive, for example, or you're running a virtual hard drive on that device where you have multiple OS or versions within that. So you don't have the option to use that, or you're changing from a legacy BIOS or to a UEFI system. And again, you're running dual boot or multi-boot systems within the device. You don't have the option to do the InPlace Upgrade. Again, there are these tools that support the upgrade process for Windows 10 and the InPlace Upgrade, but you have to be at a certain edition level or provide, have the current updates for these tools. For example, with System Center Configuration Manager, you have to be at 2012 R2 with the most current service pack and or updates and or the newer versions. I don't know how many you are aware that, of course, Microsoft is updating a lot of their software when it comes from their, their desktops, applications, and users experience, and also from your infrastructure applications. So System Center Configuration Manager is corresponding with the launch of Server 2016 So Configuration Manager 2016 is being launched and will soon be available, if not today, and that also supports the InPlace Upgrade process for Windows 10. The Microsoft Deployment Toolkit, you have to be running the 2013 version with Update 2, which has specific requirements, and I'm going to actually cover that right here. The upgrades using SUS, you basically have to update, download, and install the current KB, or this reference here. And I will actually work with our organizer for this event and see if we can, there's going to be a recording, but if there's also a way that we can actually share these files out to anybody who needs them, and they can be downloaded for these attendees, for the attendees of this event. So, and then you also have to download, again, these two KB articles are options for Server 2012 and 2012 R2 to support the SUS integration or migration to Windows 10. And then also the HTTP activation within the server management roles. Those all have to be updated with the current updates from Microsoft. And also to do any type of assessment and to evaluate your network, there's a lot of different various tools out there that can accomplish that goal. For example, there's a tool called MAPS, the Microsoft Assessment and Planning Toolkit. I don't have that noted here, but that's a tool that basically is primarily used for just doing what we call software audits or assessments, where you deploy it out or deploy it and do an assessment of your network just to get a feel for what your users have installed or using on their desktops, and also you can have an understanding what you're doing at your infrastructure or within your network on your servers. If you're virtualized, how many hosts you have, how many VMs are on those hosts, what's running within those VMs, what type of applications you're running, and all different areas with MAPS. And also MAPS is an assessment tool from the perspective that it will assess your hardware and a device, and if it can run this current technology, be it Windows 10, Office 2016, and also within your server 2016. So that's one tool and that's one option that some of you hopefully are familiar with. And then also Microsoft offers the Windows Upgrade Analytics tool. Again, this falls in line with that whole option to basically do an assessment of your devices and understand or set up kind of a refresh cycle of how often you're going to refresh devices to bring in Windows 10, and or if you're just going to try and utilize the hardware that's out there today and do an assessment on if it can run and support Windows 10 from a hardware perspective and our applications. And it gives you a nice management console where you can actually see the different graphs and charts and narrow down specific devices, what's supported, what devices are not, and what devices need to be refreshed to move to Windows 10. And then you also have another information and guidance on Windows, ready for Windows, and gives you guidance from a technical standpoint of how to get ready for Windows, how to prepare for it, and your different deployment options like we've discussed. Provisioning, like I mentioned, is basically in place of re-imaging, and these are basically the different settings that you can basically utilize within the provisioning process. Your initial setup, the initial upgrade, your certificates, all these different settings, policies can be set up within the provisioning process. Just to kind of give you an idea, your browser settings, your start menu, all those different things can be utilized within the provisioning process. So Windows 10 is designed for digital transformation. So we've covered to a certain extent to be more productive, right? To basically, it runs on modern devices, gives the user flexibility to basically have multiple devices that they log into, but they have access to the same interface, user interface, and data and information that they access and utilize. And it's a more personal experience for the user because they feel like they have that flexibility to move and access information from a lot of different devices. And again, it runs on more powerful and modern devices that are out there today. And there are certain requirements that you need to have some of these different devices to run some of these features that are within Windows 10. Like today, I'm doing this presentation on a Windows or Microsoft Surface 4 device, which I actually love. It's an awesome device. From a security perspective, on my other devices, some of my family members will access it, they'll do some certain things, and I'm working on that device. Maybe they'll close and delete something. They know my password, but you have Windows Hello that basically, they're not my face. So if they don't have my face, they can't access my OS and my platform and my content that I'm doing and utilizing on my device. I can just set them up with a different profile to access. So there's a lot of enhancements done. So it's basically become more safer and more secure, which I'm going to be covering now. Again, so basically safer and more secure. So like I mentioned, Windows Hello, I think is absolutely awesome. On my device, I'm using it. I actually set it up for another family member within my house. It's very easy to use and set up for people. It's basically a face identifier. So basically, even if I'm having kind of a bad day and stuff, and I don't look the best, it still recognizes me. And there's also, and if it doesn't, or there's some type of issue recognizing me, there's also Microsoft Passport, which is basically a code or a key that you use to access the device, and it'll ask for you. And there's also what we call Credential Guard, which I'm actually going to kind of cover a little bit, where it really locks down the device for any type of, any type of access for anybody. So basically, the credentials for the user, they're accessing the network, and there's no way that they can be accessed from anybody else, and there's no viruses or threats to access that device. So it really locks it down from a different level. And there's also Secure Boot, Device Guard, and also, of course, Windows Defender. And there's also the option set up for Windows Defender is what we call System Setter Endpoint Protection. And then you also have a way to secure and that data, even if that user has the flexibility to have that data, organizational or company data on their personal devices, you can, and you have the option to manage that data. And basically, if that user leaves the organization, you don't really have to totally refresh that entire device. You can actually just pull that data and remove that data from that device itself. So Windows Information Protection is an option for managing and securing data and making sure that that data isn't moved from outside of the organization, or that user actually moves it from that device to someone outside of the organization. So there's a lot of security features within Windows Information Protection. And of course, there's Windows Defender Advanced Threat Protection, which basically adds another level to Windows Defender, which basically gives you the analytics and the access. If you are accessed by any threat, you can actually do the research and the analytics on that threat, do the discovery, understand where that threat is coming from, how common it is, and then resolve that threat, quarantine it. So there's a lot of options from a security perspective with Windows 10. Again, so it's basically device protection. So basically, we talked about Device Guard, Windows Hello, Passport, all those different device control. You can set security policies on that device. Identity protection, so you have, like I mentioned, Credential Guard, Microsoft Passport, Hello again, and then information protection, so you protect the device, drive encryption, and you protect the data, and you put conditional access on that data, like I mentioned, and you basically can remove that data from those devices. A lot of clients aren't aware of this, but if you are or your organization have Office 365 subscriptions. Some of those subscriptions actually give you an MDM solution as part of that, which is part of Microsoft Intune, but you definitely have a Microsoft deployment device management solution, mobile device management solution within that subscription to manage these devices. And of course you have basically Windows Defender, which is basically breach protection, and you also have the option to investigate and respond to those breaches within your organization. So again, like I mentioned with Windows Defender Advanced Protection, it basically helps customers detect, investigate, respond to advanced attacks and data breaches within the organization, and gives you the way to discover and understand how that breach occurred, how common that breach is across your organization, how much data they've been able to access or utilize within your organization, and you can basically build out a response to that breach. And like I said, if you find a certain threat to access, you can actually do discovery on that. That's how common, what type of feedback users have experienced with it, and what type of response they had for it. So it comes with a management console within Advanced Threat Protection that you utilize. It is a subscription-based model for this, and I'll kind of cover later in the presentation how that is accomplished for the users or your organization to utilize this type of security. Information protection. So basically, I'll reiterate, it's basically protect the system, data within a device when it's lost or stolen. Microsoft, of course, has BitLocker also, which they had on earlier versions of Windows, which basically you encrypt the hard drive, secure it, and also you can manage it with Microsoft BitLocker Administrative Management Console, which was a kind of a benefit through software assurance, but now that's a separate model for that, but now it's just a software assurance benefit to use. They can actually contain the data and separate it from that device and remove it from that device, so it prevents unauthorized users from accessing the apps, and you can secure the apps to make sure that that data is not communicated outside of that user's policies that they'd be given for that data. So you have protection options for it, so the user just can't share it out there. And there's a lot of enhancements that Microsoft has done with different options. You're going to hear out there when you talking about the cloud option from Microsoft and utilization of the public cloud from Office 365 for productivity, Azure for the integration with Office 365 and Active Directory, and then also infrastructure from apps development, all these different areas that Azure can address, and then also data. And then also you have Intune, which is basically mobile device management and also the rights to utilize the current version of Windows, and then also security through that. It's almost like I refer to it as CCM in the cloud, with System Center Configuration Manager in the cloud. So you can manage apps, deployments and updates and patches and all those different areas within your organization. And you can basically secure a device, and there's within these different tools you can also put a timeline on the user access to these devices, to this data. So if they have an Excel file that has company information on it, they want to access, you can give them access rights for 30 days. And once they hit that 30-day threshold, even if they're using a personal device, it'll lock them out. So there's a lot of options there from the security perspective for managing the data with information protection. Again, like I mentioned, Azure supports, and this is a subscription-based model for so Azure Information Protection. So you basically, and you get it through different usage rights, through different licensing models that Microsoft, or subscription models that Microsoft has today. So basically it protects all types of data and covers all these types of devices, so bring your own device model like I mentioned. Supports commonly used devices and systems, so Windows, of course, Apple devices, iOS, of course, Android. So it supports all these different devices. Gives you option to basically do it on-premise or cloud-based scenarios for information protection, because it gives you that management console flexibility. So it's pretty seamless for provisioning and support for your users and managing it. So Microsoft, of course, with the different areas of the public cloud, they cover a lot of compliance requirements for a lot of organizations. That's why you have the adoption rate for Windows 10 pretty aggressive, and a lot of people out there doing it because it covers a lot of compliance concerns, HIPAA, for example. So, this is an excellent opportunity to use and get familiar with these tools and see the benefits. So again, Credential Guard is basically a way to lock down a user's credentials at the hardware level so that cannot be accessed by any other person but that user. There are specific requirements for a lot of these different solutions that Microsoft has for basically a processor standpoint, for example, and also you can a certain BIOS level that you have. But it offers basically hardware security, virtualization based type of security, and also basically better protection against advanced persistent threats. So it secures that device and the domain credentials on that device. And you can manage this through group policy, like I mentioned, but like these other things. And also there's PowerShell commands that you can manage this through. Like I mentioned earlier, you also have, device encryption versus BitLocker. BitLocker and BitLocker to go basically is securing the hard drive on that device, and basically the user has to, and BitLocker to go is either flash drive or any external device. It can also be secured and encrypted, but with Windows 10, device encryption is already a feature set that's set up within Windows 10, and it's part and also covers OneDrive. And so it basically secures your OneDrive accounts and access to the content within that. Okay, I'm now going to go over kind of the licensing options, which includes going over the editions that are available. I'm going to highlight more of the enterprise editions of Windows 10, but I'm first going to kind of cover over with you kind of the options. Again, there's Office 365, which is like basically productivity clouds, basically your core applications and all those services that support those applications. Plus it gives you ways to manage mobile devices through mobile device management, which is part of Office 365. And then you have Enterprise Mobility Suite, which is basically security, and also gives you rights to run Intune. So security from an option to run information management, advanced threat protection. It also gives you those security, like I mentioned, to set parameters on how long a user has access to certain data, for example. And then it also gives you Azure Active Directory Premium, which gives you a certain level of services through Active Directory, like multi-factor authentication, for example. So you want to do a little bit of research and understand what the Enterprise Mobility Suite has to offer. And then Microsoft recommends that most enterprises utilize all these benefits, and all these benefits are primarily supported and can be utilized, even though there are some supported by the other editions within Windows 10, but Windows Enterprise will support 100% of all these different areas that we covered today. Microsoft changed the model under volume licensing of how you actually license Windows 10, especially when you go into the Enterprise Edition. If you want to move to the Enterprise Edition, it corresponds now with kind of more what Office 365 is when it comes to that model of Office 365 E3, E5, and it's based on feature sets, right? What features you want and how you want to utilize those features. And that's how the model is now for Windows 10 Enterprise. There's actually an E3 and an E3 option for both commercial and education. There is still the option to upgrade to Windows Pro through volume licensing, and also get the Windows Enterprise long-term branch, service branch option, and there's also the VDA option if you're virtualizing within your network. One thing I want to note, I'm running short on time here, so I'm trying to move through this information. Long-term branch addition is something that you want to use in a production environment. It's kind of used for more of a kiosk machine or a high-level machine that's within your organization, because what you're doing with that addition is you're staying at that addition. You're getting the patches and the updates, but you're not getting the new features, or you don't have the rights to the new features. So you can't even put a hold on those features and eventually utilize them within your environment. So keep that in mind when you're considering, because I know a lot of clients that have had discussions with clients that saying, hey, I really want to really have those features held out longer and longer, because I really had my testing process and my validation process is longer than 6 months. You have to consider what you're going to get from a long-term branch on service branch, and you're not going to get some of the features. I don't know if these are really used within the business, like Cortana or Edge, for example, which is your browser interface, but those aren't supported on this edition of Windows. So comparing the enterprise version and the pro version of Windows 10. As you can see, the pro version has a lot of common capabilities. You have Microsoft Passport. It does support Windows information protection, for example, but it doesn't have credential guard, device guard, or advanced threat protection, for example, from a security perspective. And then if you want an app locker or application virtualization, which is App B, and those type of things, you really have to move into the enterprise platform to accomplish that. And also, if you want Windows Defender Advanced Threat Protection, you need to move into the enterprise version. And the only difference between enterprise E3 and E5 is the advanced threat protection. So if there is a requirement within your organization or you have a set of users that you want to implement that level of security, you have to move into enterprise E5. These are the resources. I could have put out here a lot more for everybody, but I just don't want to overwhelm everybody. This is going to be a recorded webinar, so you can go back to it. I'll also discuss with the organizer if we can actually present these slides out for you to review, to get these different resources review. The one that I've noticed helps me the most is the documentation. So it basically covers Windows 10, Enterprise Mobility, Azure. It covers all the security with the EMS. So it has a lot of good documentation for you to review. And then also Windows 10 security. So it covers some of these topics. I apologize, I only had a certain amount of time, but I gave you at least the directive, right, to understand what's out there, what you can utilize, and maybe want to do some research on to see if it'll benefit your organization. And then also, I think this is a lot of questions that I get from clients that ask me about, how can I, get away from this Windows as a service option, or how can I manage and control these features when they're rolled out, because I just can't automatically give them to my users, because I don't know if it's going to, affect their use of their device or support their device and the applications on it. This is a very good article that kind of covers all of that. So with that, again, I really appreciate everybody's time today. I know everybody has a busy schedule. Hopefully you found this to be very informative and gave you a lot of good information, or at least gave you some ideas or some direction to go with Windows 10, so you can do some research and provided that information to give you a better understanding. So we're going to open it up for questions if anybody does have them.
Thank you, Danny. That was a great presentation. We have got quite a few questions, so let me just go straight into it. Yeah, the first one is from Michael Beffoni. He's asking, major updates break a fair number of WDE protected solutions. Haven't used BitLocker to see if that is affected, but certainly PGP and I hear McAfee.
So he wants to understand if that, hey Mike, how you doing today? So you want to understand, Mike, if some of these third-party tools like McAfee or anything will be affected by these different updates and how you can manage these updates, or am I understand the question correctly? You did word it pretty well, so I apologize. So
Yeah. Do you want me to repeat that?
yeah, can you
He's
repeat
asking
that? I apologize.
Yeah, he's asking major updates break a fair number of WDE protected solutions.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, so if you find that a lot of the updates and a lot of the enhanced features that Microsoft is implementing to your devices or solutions that you're utilizing out there, again, like I mentioned, you can control and monitor and manage those updates through different policies or different tools that you use, be it Windows deployment services or update services, and or System Center Configuration Manager. But if it's just an isolated device, then you can look at going to a specific version of Windows where you don't really have to, like the long-term service branch version, where you don't really have to manage that device because it doesn't get those updates when it comes to feature sets. Hopefully that answered your question to a certain extent. If it didn't, please follow up with our organizer or your sales executive, and they can email me. We can actually do, I could follow up through communication via email, and or we can have a call, because again, I'm an employee with PCM and /OnPoint.
Thank you, Danny. The next question is, how do you retain default application assignments? Whenever I image a Windows 10 machine, they all revert to the original Windows 10 settings and ignore all the software installed.
Well, what you can do in that case is you can actually go through the process. I don't know what tools you've used to evaluate those applications and to set a process in place. If you're doing any type of testing or within your organization, you can use some of these tools that I mentioned from an analytics perspective and understand those what those applications are that you need to reinstall on the device and how they'll be affected with that upgrade. So those tools will help you, and also there's a lot of resources out there that I provided in the slide about the actual Windows update process. And it guides you through those specific scenarios of application, how this upgrade will affect the applications, if at all, and how you can move and change those settings and control those settings. And if we're talking about re-imaging, of course, with re-imaging, you can set a process up where those applications are very, if they do support Windows 10 and they can run on Windows 10, you can control the actual settings within that application. And again, like I mentioned, if that didn't answer your question, if you want more clarity on that, we can actually set up a call with me, and or we can have communication. You can reach out to your sales to start that.
Thank you, Danny. Another question is, how do you migrate data for a replacement imaging solution, or for imaging model, sorry. So how do you migrate data for a replacement imaging model?
Okay, so basically if you want to migrate and move the data, again, like I mentioned, these tools are what is used to basically move and manage the data and the upgrade for Windows 10. So I would recommend that you get very familiar, if you're not today, with once you've done all the updates and the new features they've added to Microsoft Deployment Toolkit, for example, or SCCM, or even maps, right? These are 3 good tools that you could use. You also, again, the analytics tool supports the Microsoft Deployment Toolkit, and also the, SCCM. So it helps with that whole integration and upgrade to Windows 10. So these tools help with the movement of the data and actually completing the upgrade process and moving to that new image.
Okay, thank you so much, Danny. Michael Beffoni has got quite a few questions, but he's saying if he can set up a call on the remaining questions with you.
Sure, no problem. I mean, like I said, I'm a PCM a badged employee, so I support all our clients, and I'm more than happy to have a call with you. So just reach out to your sales executive or account executive, and he can reach out to me and we can schedule a follow-up call. I can answer all those questions. Right.
Thank you so much, Danny. There's a question from Rod Cummings. Can you use semantic ghost with Windows 10?
I would, I'm not very familiar with the third-party tools, right? I know a lot of clients use Ghost on a lot of previous versions when it came to 7 and also 8 when they did the re-imaging process, and I just provided them directive on how they would accomplish it from a perspective of what you have to utilize from the software perspective. So I mentioned the whole volume licensing, product key, where you obtain that. You can't just obtain it from the OEM. So I'm not very familiar with those tools. PCM, we're a technology provider, so we support all technology from hardware and software. So I would have to do a little bit of research there, Rod, for you, and or we could actually go and reach out to our semantic support specialist, which we have on staff, to confirm that. So I apologize, but I'm pretty narrow-minded when it comes to technology, and I need to broaden my understanding. I have awareness. I definitely have awareness. That's not an issue. It's just, requirements and specific support for these technologies. I'm not familiar enough with semantic ghosts to confirm that for you. But we can confirm it for you, no problem.
Thank you, Danny. Next question is from Joseph. One second. He's asking, is BitLocker available for all Windows 10 edition?
Yes, BitLocker is available for Pro and also the Enterprise version. If you want to utilize a centralized management solution, you have to go with Enterprise with software assurance. So you can get NVAM or Microsoft BitLocker Admin Console, which you basically have an admin console to manage the devices that are utilizing BitLocker encryption and BitLocker to go. So the software assurance is required and has to be maintained for that benefit and to obtain the rights for and utilize. And you also get rights to what's called MDOP, Microsoft Desktop Optimization Pack, which I refer to as like a set of tools that you can use, and it's almost like a management console, management set of tools to manage the device from reboot, error reporting, like it's almost like operations manager to a certain extent. You can manage application monitoring and error history on an application, so you get rights to that also with that software assurance benefit.
Thank you so much, Danny. Next question is from Colby Stalker. And they're asking, to use Windows 10 Hello in a domain environment, do you have to have Azure setup or can it be on-prem?
Now that one I would need to confirm as far as how you would manage and secure. I know there's integration with Active Directory and Active Directory Service within Azure, but again, this is a new feature set and kind of technology that Microsoft has introduced. And again, I actually went out on my own and acquired my own Surface 4 so I could get familiar with it and set up process and all that, and understanding the whole update process and feature sets and all that. Again, but my device is not domain to join and not managed by my network, so I can't see the whole process from the branch process within that. So I apologize I can't answer that today, but I can definitely do a follow-up with you to confirm that. Okay, and I don't know, Norman, if we can, post responses to these various questions. I don't know if the other attendees have seen the value in these questions, but and it'd be helpful to them to understand too, but we can definitely get that information out.
Okay, thank you so much, Danny. Next one is from Russell Freeman. He's asking, can you talk more about provisioning package and how to deploy them in SCCM and how to add it to the device from a vendor like Dell?
Okay, so basically what you're going to do, it depends. When you're doing, are we talking about re-imaging? Is that what he's asking for, to re-image a device? That's what's being asked? Or is it doing the whole provisioning process?
I'll give you, out of the, he's saying
well,
out of
why don't we do this? why don't we do this, because I know we're cut short on everybody's time here. We'll take that question offline. Again, you can follow up with the sales executive. No, I know, Norman, you have all the contact information too, right, that you can refer them to me and direct them to me. I apologize for giving you slides that I didn't include my contact information. Again, I should have done that. But again, I'm a PCM OnPoint Badge employee, and I'm available, and I support all our clients. So I can definitely follow up. I know there's probably some other questions, but I know we're short on everybody's time here. So we can definitely do follow-up on all these questions, and I'll set up calls if needed to have that discussion.
I think we have got just time for one more question.
Okay.
It's from Joseph again. He's asking, would it make more sense to take advantage of Windows 10 information protection versus BitLocker, or use both?
So I would recommend that you actually go into the model in the cloud and see all the benefits. I mean, I would do a lot of research and discovery on these different feature sets. I had to cover them really fast today, which I apologize. Hopefully someday I'll go over and just focus on one particular area within these features and really do a deep dive. But a lot of what's available today and that whole integration with Active Directory services and how well Windows 10 integrates with Azure, for example, and information rights protection and threat management protection, all that stuff is pretty high level security that will really protect and secure that device, along with Windows Defender. I mean, Windows Defender is the same as what we call endpoint protection that Microsoft offers for an NF54 class solution. The only difference between Defender and System Center Endpoint Protection is endpoint protection can be managed through SCCM, centralized managed, where Defender isn't. So Defender has kind of been pushed over as more consumer-based security solution, but it's basically, when you go to endpoint, it pulls from Windows Defender and then utilizes those same tools and features. So I would say that you need to do some little bit of research and maybe if you have an opportunity to have a discussion with me and any one of our support specialists to talk about EMS, Enterprise Mobility Suite, and everything they're doing within the cloud to secure devices and help you manage these devices and any type of device. And also give a flexibility for those users to do the whole BYOD model where they can bring your own device, for example.
Thank you so much, Danny, for a great presentation and for so many answers for the questions.
Okay.
If you still have any more questions, you can email us at amec@onpoint.com, and I will have it answered from Danny, and the Microsoft team will get in touch with you.
And again, I want to say I really appreciate everybody's time today, and hopefully you found this to be informative and helpful. And again, I'm available for any follow-ups if needed or any additional conversations that we need to have. And again, thank you and have a good day.
Thank you so much, Danny, and thank you all for joining us today. Have a great day ahead.